Hi, and welcome to my presentation where I'm going to analyze two different stories and their narrative structures. The first one is the first Star Wars movie from 1977 called A New Hope, and the other one is an anecdote told by an ex basketball player, Argentinian, called Andres Nocioni, in a streaming show in Borderix. To analyze the Nocioni's anecdote, I used Labov's model of natural narrative, and to analyze Star Wars, I used Propp's morphology of the folktale. Even though Star Wars it is not a fairy tale and it is not even literature, it clearly follows this quest of the hero narrative, and it has all the functions, or not all of them, but many of the functions that Prop identified in folktales. There is always an initial situation in these kind of stories that takes place before all the different functions and sets the context in which the story develops. In the case of Star Wars, we see how Princess Leia has the plans of the Death Star, which is a weapon made by the Empire, and when he's being chased by Darth Vader, the main enemy of the movie, she records a message asking for Ben Kenobi's help and sends two droids to a planet, to the planet where Ben Kenobi lives, to find him. These droids are then kidnapped and sold to Luke Skywalker, who's going to be the hero of the movie and of the first three movies. Um, Luke sees the message that was saved in the droid and listens, and he hears the name Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he recognizes the last name Kenobi and says, I know a man called Ben Kenobi who lives around here. And well, after hearing this, one of the droid escapes, and this is when we find our first function. Here we can find the lack function because Luke needs two things. First, the droid that has escaped, and also he needs Ben Kenobi to be able to listen to the entire message that was sent because it was not supposed to be shown to Luke, but actually only to Ben Kenobi, and that's why the droid escaped. So he needs those two things as he goes looking for the droid. When he finds the droid, he is also attacked by the Sand People and he needs to be rescued. That's when Ben Kenobi shows up and rescues Luke from the Sand People. So we can say that the rescue function takes place because even though it is not the enemy that hunts him or chases him, there is a hostile creature that attacks him from which he needs to be rescued. The next function is absentation, because when Ben Kenobi saves Luke, they both listen to the message from Leia, and they find out that Leia is asking for help in Alderaan. So Ben Kenobi asks Luke to join him. At first, Luke refuses, but then, when he goes back to his house and sees that his family has been killed, he accepts to join Ben Kenobi. So he leaves home. The next step is guidance. Even though it is not exactly what it says in the function, because the definition is the hero is transported to the location of requested item. Here he hasn't requested an item, but to follow his path, his quest as a hero, he needs to go to Alderaan and he's transported. They hire Han Solo and Chewbacca, two characters that are iconic in the saga. And in this trip, he's given many tools. Well, first he's given a lightsaber before they travel, but during this trip, he's trained by Ben Kenobi, who teaches Luke how to use the Force and tells him things that will be useful for Luke in the future. As they are traveling, Ben Kenobi senses that something terrible has happened, and when they arrived where to the place where Alderaan should be, Alderaan is not there anymore because it has been destroyed by the Death Star, and the Death Star is there and attracts their ship, which they can't control anymore. So now they have a difficult task, which is to escape the Death Star. But it is not the only one, because when they are there, they realize that Princess Leia, the one who asked them for help, is actually locked in there. So they have to save her and escape with her. Eventually, the hero achieves this, but in the process, Ben Kenobi is killed by Darth Vader, the enemy, and they only manage to escape because Darth Vader lets them. They had placed a tracker in the ship and they wanted to find where the rebel base was. So they let them leave to find out the location of the base. But both tasks are solved. Once he arrives to the rebel base, he is presented with the ultimate task of the movie, which is now that they have the plans of the Death Star to destroy it. And he's one of the pilots that is going to try to do this and win this fight against the enemy. This task is also solved because after a fight where Darth Vader is involved and where Vader fails to stop Luke from achieving his purpose, Luke Skywalker destroys the Death Star by using the Force and applying the things that he has trained and that he has been taught by Ben Kenobi. So here we can find a solution or a victory because the hero wins. After this, the hero gets his recognition in a ceremony where Princess Leia gives him a medal for his efforts and for having saved the rebels. That's when the movie ends, and that's how the quest of the hero is completed in Star Wars A New Hope, which actually this cycle continues in the other two movies of this trilogy, of the first trilogy. But since this was a first movie and they didn't know whether they were going to be able to complete the trilogy, this movie is sort of conclusive. So we have a complete quest of the hero in the movie, but we could also analyze the whole trilogy, the movies 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars, which were actually the first ones released, but they're called 4, 5, and 6. And we would find more elements of this quest of the hero in the trilogy. But to make it a little bit shorter, I decided to choose only A New Hope. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to analyze Nocioni's anecdote using Labob's model of natural narrative. The first element that we find when someone tells an anecdote is the abstract, which is a short summarizing statement that lets the listener know that the anecdote, the story, is about to start. In this case, he's asked to tell the story. The host tells him, I'm interested in the story of the wedding ring. And then he says, the wedding ring. And that's his abstract. That's when he's telling, okay, I'm going to tell this story and I'm about to start. Then there's the orientation, where the context in which the story is going to unfold is set. In this case, the orientation is quite long because he explains some things such as, well, his friendship with Facundo Campazo, which is going to be one of the protagonists of the story. Uh, he explains that at first They didn't get along very well, but as time passed, they started to have a better relation. Um, he says that this happened when they both played together at Real Madrid. He also explains that the coach had asked him to go out with his teammates to bond and to make a to build a chemistry inside the team. And he also explains that Campaso used to always joke around and do this thing where um, he wanted to put the ring inside a cup and drink until he felt that the ring was touching his teeth. Well, and then he says we went to a restaurant, and that is the context for the story or the orientation. And then there is a complicating action, which is usually the longest part in the story because it is where all the action is. Um, in this case, it starts with Nocioni losing the ring. He was in the restaurant with Campaso. They were drinking, doing the thing with the ring, and they didn't realize that the waiter was taking the cups to the kitchen. When they realized it was too late, and they had both lost their rings, but they were able to recover Campaso's ring, not Nocioni's, who lost the ring that night. So he didn't want to tell his wife that he had lost the ring. So he called the jeweler to make a new one. And the jeweler said, I will have it in a week. I have the notes, I can make it exactly the same, but you have to wait a week. So he had to lie for the whole week to his wife. He was constantly hiding his hand, and when his wife asked, because she asked twice where the ring was, he was always making an excuse or lying, saying, "I will put it on now. It's in the bedroom, whatever." He was always lying for that week. The day before the ring arrived, he was with Campaso and his wife, and Campaso started insisting on going out. Nocioni refused at first. He didn't want to go out with Campaso again after what had happened the last time. But Nocioni's wife said, just once, let's go out. We never go out. So he had no choice but to accept and go to that party. When they got to the party, Campasa started joking around again. And Nocioni warned him, stop joking around or it will happen the same as with the red. And he stopped in the middle of the sentence because he realized what he was doing. And, and Nocioni's wife listened to this and said, where is the. And this is when the complicating action ends and the resolution begins. Because Nocioni's wife, after realizing what had happened with the ring and the lies of her husband, she got mad and left the party, leaving Nocioni alone in Madrid without his wallet and without the car. And this is the end of the anecdote as told by Nocioni, except for a punchline that he delivers after this. And he says, and the ring arrived the following day to make it a little bit funnier. But this punchline still isn't the coda. The coda are the two phrases that follow this, which are "fuck was insufferable" and there are a lot, meaning there are a lot of anecdotes of that time. And these show that uh, he's back in the present time and that he has stopped talking about that particular story, about that particular moment in his life. Then there's the evaluation, which is not a particular moment in the story, but actually the evaluative language used throughout the story, which we can find in this anecdote in moments such as when he says, what will I say? This is insane. What do I do after he loses the ring? That shows his position, what he thinks about that moment. That he was desperate about the situation. The insults to Campasa, every time he insults Campasa, it shows that what Campasa did to him or what he caused was something bad for him. Also, the gestures and faces. When he's saying the first phrase, "What will I say? This is insane." He's shrugging his shoulders and using his hands to show that desperation and how he was feeling at the time. And also certain expressions such as "it blurted out," which show that he had no control of what he was saying. He didn't mean to say it; it was accidental, and because he was trying to lie to his wife to hide the fact that he had lost a ring to his wife, and it was him who actually said something that made his wife realize what had happened. So these are some examples of the evaluative language used by Nocioni in this anecdote.